Good afternoon, hello, welcome everyone, welcome to DevChatter. Glad you could all make it out on this nice Saturday afternoon to join us here. Obviously, if you are, west of me, good morning. If you're east of me, maybe good evening. Either way, hopefully you're having a fantastic day. We are going to go ahead and get started with a little bit of programming. For today, I think it is time that we work on one of those tasks that is... I don't want to say near and dear to every programmer's heart, because, well, it's not. But it kind of is. And I'll explain what I mean. So today I want to focus on getting our application... I'll go with the word completed, with a giant asterisk on that. And by that I mean everyone that's done any significant amount of software development knows that there is no application that is ever complete or done or finished or wrapped up in any fashion. But yes, exactly, as S&B says, in quotes there, it's finished, which means wrapping up a lot of the loose ends and things like that can get us to the point where we can say, hey, yeah, let's ship a version of this. I want to try and wrap up a lot of those loose ends that we've got so we can get to the point where we're ready to package up that next version. I think I alluded to that in our previous stream, that in one of our next couple of streams we're going to be doing that. If I can, I want to do the actual packaging of a released version of this on stream, but I want to make sure that I figure out how we can do that first. And the reason I say that is we're using preview bits for this, so I'm not 100% that the classic standard way of building either packaged up versions of WPF applications, like one-click deploys or anything like that, will necessarily work the same way for ours, or even whether any of the various installer applications will work. So we'll figure that out in the stream that we do that. My plan is to figure out how to make it work before we do the stream, and then attempt to do everything, and we'll, obviously be banging our heads against the wall a little bit while we do it, but hey, that's programming. You never get anywhere without a little bit of that. So anyway, I want to do a little bit of a greeting. So welcome everyone. Hey S&B, glad to see you're there. Grenadons gathering indeed. Glad to see those in chat. Coding Gorilla, hello, welcome. Snowly Dev, I love that name. Good evening. Let's see who else is in here. Voight, hey, greetings, welcome. Isn't .NET Core 3.0 only 2 months away or so? Yes, so Voight, it is going to be released soon. But since we're still on a preview, there's not necessarily a greenlit path that works really well for deployment yet. And that being said, even when they launch the final version, that's not to say that all the various packaging installer tools that exist out there are going to work exactly the way we want for .NET Core 3.0, even when it is released itself, because obviously that gets released, and some groups that had early access stuff will get their software updated to that. But I mean, if anyone in here has worked on any kind of projects that have to keep up with versions of software, either products or open source projects or anything like that, you know that yeah, you can keep up sometimes, but occasionally you're, trailing by a month or two. JT Fills, I'm guessing, is how you say that. But if not, let me know what you do want to go with. Hey, greetings, welcome. Snowly Dev on the wrong Twitch account. Which account is your normal one, Snowly Dev? They said it would release at the end of September. That's pretty close. Then we'll see what happens with it. Either way, welcome to the stream, everyone. Glad to see you're all here. So, obviously, anyone that follows my stream regularly is going to know about this thing that I'm... Oh, you're Nyamra! Oh, okay. And, yeah. Awesome. So, Snowly Dev, you just changed your name a lot, apparently. But glad to see you're here. What was I going to open up? Oh, yes. I was going to show you all a thing that obviously the people that are regulars here know exists in Visual Studio, but I'm going to mention it for everyone else. The task list. So I'm sometimes critical of using a whole bunch of to-dos. If I hop on a project that is being worked on by a team of developers and I find it loaded with a bunch of to-do comments that are about tasks to work on, I usually get a little bit worried and go, hey, is there some way we can get this into either some kind of a Kanban board or an issue tracker or anything like that for these types of issues? I'm okay with the to-do being there because it points to the right place. So it's easy for someone in the looking at that card to find it also. But I want to make sure that they're referencing each other at minimum, so that there's also a way to check, like, oh, did this actually get completed and fixed? Because then if the comment had that number, I could go look, and etc. When you've got like 1 or 2 people that are working on some stuff, and your to-do comment is not a task to be done, I'm usually more okay with them. But either way, if you do have them in your system, one of the best ways to find them is actually to use the task list, which is built into Visual Studio, and you can actually find all of the tasks by just looking for them. I forget if hack shows up also. Do those show up on the list? No. Oh, yes, they do. There it is. Haha, see? Hack and to do both appear on the task list. Can I do, do they make it so anything can be in here? Something? Anything? Or is it just these 2 words? I seem to remember these 2 words being the ones. Yeah, so it's just these 2 words. Maybe there's some other words that also work in the task list to show up in here. If there are, I don't remember what they are, but if someone used a comment that either had hack or to do, you can find it in the task list. So that's one reason I say if you are going to leave one of these comments, use this format. Oh, bug might. That's a good one, Voight. Bug might be in there. So bug, this thing. Is bug in there? No, it didn't appear. Okay, so hack and to do are apparently the ones, yeah. So either way, it's a cool thing that if you know is there, does let you track them down. So it is a reason to match that format if you are going to leave one of those comments. Usually the way that I like to do them, when I'm not, so on its open source projects, these little side ones that we do, I don't worry about just putting them in anywhere, and I don't worry about merging them. But when I work on projects for my clients, something that I'll do is I will usually have in our automated build process a check that looks for these to-do comments and treats them as warnings. And the reason why is that then you get these little warning flags when you're doing your commits, and when you send in your pull request, you can see, oh, there are these warning flags, and then that at least lets someone confirm, yes, I want to let that to-do go in there. Now, the reason for that is when I'm working on tasks, so if I'm working on a story, a lot of times I will leave a to-do for something that's part of the same story that I need to come back to. So for example, if I go down the rabbit hole where I'm going to start fleshing out one piece and I start unit testing that thing, but I want to make sure I remember to come back and get another part that's going to have to integrate later, I'll leave myself a to-do comment to make sure I do that. And that's a way of making sure I don't forget. So then I can see it in the pull request. And so then other people know, hey, you left this to do. Were you meaning to do that? And it's like, oh, yes, yeah, no, there's another piece of this story that I didn't implement, and thank you for the to-do catches it, right? Because I left myself that note to make sure I wouldn't forget it. So it's kind of like, don't let me forget this kind of reminders. So that's one of the ways that I like to use them. And one of the things that you'll find that I'll do them for on stream is a lot of times if I know I can't get to it by the end of the stream, I'll leave myself a to-do comment, because unlike, with things where I'm, doing it for a client, I'm doing it for work, for example, where I have a lot more time, I'm going to have a full day at work, I can, try to work on tasks where I can leave myself at a good state. But for example, with streaming, if I don't come back to it for a few days, I want to make sure I had a to-do comment there to remind me what I was doing. So that's part of the idea there. SMB, you're currently leaning heavily on the task list at work as you're converting several APIs over to a new system. Yeah, so that's one of the other things that you sometimes have to do is you're going to have to leave a lot of little notes to yourself, and the task list is really helpful for those. But that's usually for pieces of like a task, not a story, and that is a significant point to make there. Is that is a task list, not a story list. So it should be about little things usually. Oh, is Fix Me another one, or is just that one the one that you use? Does Fix Me show up in here? Because that would be cool. But yeah, some people do that. But the reason to use to do and hack are because it definitely shows up in this list. But that's just a reason for those conventions, in case you are wondering. Okay, so this has a few of the loose ends that I want to make sure that we tie up, so let's start going through it. Oh, and if anyone is new here, first off, I want to welcome you to the stream, so feel free to ask questions, make suggestions, anything like that. I'm going to toss links to our Discord, our GitHub, and our YouTube over there in the chat. You can also find links down below. Our Discord's chat location where you can, talk with any of us about various stuff. It's just a chat room full of, well, I should say it's many chat rooms in a big collection of chat rooms. Discord's a chat application. We have a DevChatter community on there with a bunch of places to talk about various tech things that people are interested in. And our source code's on GitHub, obviously, and there are archives of our videos in YouTube. It's a chat hotel. Sure, yeah, why not? It's like a chat conference center. There are various open spaces and rooms to talk in. Okay, so fix the array populating bug. I believe that I fixed that already. And I did it in the hacky way that we talked about, which essentially all I did was I just made a quick little remove duplicates method. Now let me explain this bug. Essentially, we had settings inside of the application that we store we store them in JSON files, and the reason we do that is because we want people to be able to save, export, and share them, and it's easier to just have it be file-based than have to build have to build a database and have like, oh, here's exporting and importing functionality in the application. It's like, why don't we just store it in the config files to begin with, and then people can replace and make adjustments as they want. So essentially giving the streamer power to do that. Part of the other reason that I did it that way is there are a lot of streaming applications where people will make little scripts for making these changes. It is a lot easier for someone else's script that they make to be able to adjust text files than it is for them to have to connect to a database, even if it is something as simple as like a local DB or something like that. So this is just a convenience for them. The challenge, though, is when they load in their preferences, we need to make sure that anything that we treated as a collection does not create duplicates. So if they had a setting for one of the items that is in the system, for example, so we're modeling this after, this is connecting to a video game. It's connecting to Final Fantasy VII. In that game, the characters can use a potion item in order to heal one of the characters. If they have settings for that, and our chat application gives the ability for the viewers to give the player a potion if they want. So if you had settings in there to define the cost of that potion, so how much it costs the viewer to give that potion to the streamer, then obviously we could end up with two of them if we load the default settings and add in the new ones. Now you might say, why do you even have the defaults then? And the reason is, if their game changes, or if we as the developer add an additional item to that list, we need to make sure they get a setting for it. So we do need to add that list. So obviously we need to merge these two collections, and that's the way that we have to do it. And I'm not going to get into the complexities of some of the other things about it, because we're also supporting any mods in the game as well. So modifications to the game. So let's pull that, because that's our remove duplicates right there. So that to-do was actually done. Let's have a look at the next one. So, actually, what is this? Exclude these for most stuff we do. They're non-standard. Yep. We're going to need to take a look at that. That, I think, is a little bit complicated to look at right now. Okay, here we go. Here's one that I think is going to be good. So this is add logging. We can totally do that. So we might run into some exceptions while our code is running. We obviously want to log those. So let's take a look. Okay. Get out of here, task list. So we're obviously using dependency inversion and IOC here. Whoops. And we take in a memory accessor and a status hub emitter in our memory color accessor class. So the memory accessor, the menu color accessor is designed to change the menu colors in the game. When we do that, that means that the chat can decide to change the menu color. Now, the way that we do that is by accessing the memory of the game and changing those specific values for the colors of the menu. In addition, we use this status hub emitter to tell another part of our application about the change. And so every time we change a color, we do both things. Let's go ahead and run it, take a look, and then we can, just so I can show you what that is, and then we will go ahead and actually add in some logging. So this is the game right here. This is Final Fantasy VII. You can see it right here. They've got a clock running, other stuff like that. And you'll notice this menu color here, this nice blue with some, you know, like a little bit of darker blues, things like that. It's in a nice transition-y color. I'm going to run this, and we're going to take a look at what else is going on here. So localhost 777 status. There we go. So as this comes up, this site, so the site's not running yet, it's about to spin up. There it is. Okay. So this is a stream overlay. So a streamer can include this on their page and it'll just sit off to the side while they're streaming. In addition to that, we caught a breakpoint. I left myself a breakpoint. Continue on, please. Okay. So that's going there. This is our WPF application, and as soon as I click connect, and actually let me change our background so you guys can see this. There we go. So I actually have some of our overlay running, but if the application's not going, it just loads up transparently and it doesn't display. So that means I can have that there, and it only shows up when Interactive 7, our WPF app, is running. Where are the colors on the scene overlays, the ones chat can control? So chat can now control all of this. So it can control that one, it can control that one, and it can control that one. So chat controls all of these. So for example, chat could do this. And now, so chat has control now. I want to show you like what all is going on here, because this is not as simple as just chat changing colors. We've obviously done that on stream multiple times in a lot of different ways. Oh, the other ones? Oh man, do I not have that turned on? You're right, I don't have it turned on. Wow, how did I not turn that on? I forgot to turn it on. Good call, S&B. Thank you, S&B. You're right, I forgot to turn it on. See that hello from the bot that we just got? That's what S&B. Alright, there we go. Sorry about that. I don't know how I forgot to turn that on. And I reset that one apparently when I did it. So S&B is actually going to change the stream color. And what's fun about that is we can do this. So we can do just a standard menu change also. So that's what's kind of cool about that is we actually have two color changing systems running in our stream right now. So the colors going around the border, that is our color switcher application, which you can find on our GitHub. It does the same kind of thing. And actually, I'm just integrating in the control to be able to change the colors on the stream. So it's a simple little system tray only application that just does that. You write your own like HTML page, and it is just informed of when the colors change, and it does this. So it's kind of neat, and you can then just adjust to whatever color it said. So it makes it nice and simple. Additionally, the in-game one lets us do things like this. So we can actually go to any color palette that you specify. It can either be specifying a set of colors, or you can say random, or you can do a named palette, something along those lines, all up to you, and you get this nice control. So that is what we are doing. I figured I would show you all that so you've seen it once. I really should have changed that color one time before I did that, because that's a nasty color. Can I change that one with no, the program's not running, so it won't be able to do that. I can do this. Okay. So it is gone now, because that didn't look very good with our text color on it. So okay. So we want to add logging just in case something goes wrong here. So why did I say add a logger for exceptions? Okay, so that's in case something went wrong while it was writing to memory or attempting to show the colors. Yeah, I could see either of those going wrong. This is a task? Oh, run in background safely. Yeah, okay. So that's why I said add logging, because right here I said run in the background safely. There's no exception handling, but the exception will be thrown in the right place because we did this run in background safely. So essentially that's going to be we're synchronously calling an asynchronous method is sort of the way that it is there, in that we can get the error handling because we are awaiting inside of there. So that's kind of the idea behind that. It's a fun little bit of code that we did. But either way, we need a logger in order to do that. So let's jump up here. I think we just have a logger. I think we're just using the Microsoft Extensions logging framework. And menu color accessor. Logger. And what? No, why is that the top option? Okay. So we have a field that we created. It's private read-only iLogger of menu color accessor, which is a nice way of just having an abstraction for logging that we can get access to. And this will get loaded in at runtime when we create this object and become available to us. Now, down here, in our run in background safely call, which I actually want to write like this. So on the hub emitter, we're going to say run in background safely. And if we look at the parameters, you'll see continue on captured context says value to pass to configure await. Configure on captured context. Let's leave it as true for now. And then for our exception handling, let's make let's just do a lambda here. So, because I don't think it'll be a problem. So we're going to log an error, if there was an error. We're going to pass in the exception, and we're going to have a message. So this was error showing new colors. Yeah, error showing new colors. That's fine. Good enough error message, so we'll do that. So that gets that exception logged. So if there was an exception in the background process here, we are going to at least get it logged. And then this one is attempting to do the same kind of thing here. So I'm going to put each parameter on its own line. And when we're writing memory, do I try catch in here? No, I don't. Maybe I should. These get created using IOC also. Let's try that. Because we should get a little bit more error handling in here. So iLogger of type memory accessor. Memory, let's just say logger, instead of like memlogger or something like that. So there's the logger. Fix the usings, and I think if we just wrap each public method, because, okay, so that is if it comes back as null, so if it can't find it. Yeah, I think we want to make sure that this doesn't throw exceptions, because it's running on someone's stream, so it's very important that their stream doesn't get interrupted by something going wrong, right? We don't want their program to just crash, because they could be in the middle of playing the game. Ooh, the purple looks nice. Logger, log error, and then we're going to say E, and this is... failed to read game memory. take this and put all of it inside of here for now. So that would just mean there was some kind of just total failure in this. And continue on. We won't rethrow for now, so we'll have it in the error log. And let's do the same thing here. Since we don't really have a great thing to do with these right now, and if we find eventually that we have a way of handling these errors, then we should do that. Failed to scan memory. It's not ideal, and I know that it's going to be inside there also, but that lets me know that it definitely got logged by that. So, and it does require that error message. Ooh, we have to return on this one no matter what, don't we? Scan memory has a scan result that has to return regardless. So close handle, I think, can be called on a handle that's not open. Actually. Yeah, exactly. What do I return when the exception is thrown is the question. That's actually a good point. I could return this, which is a not found result, essentially. That's a good point. Which I guess I'll do here, just in case we ever do a finally or something like that. Because the return value is going to be the same whether it was a finally or not. Always return null. Yeah, thank you. That is a great suggestion. We are actually returning a null value, but that is essentially the... that's in the results, so anyone receiving this would actually be checking the -1 first. So the caller should look for the status, should read the status, and then decide whether or not they want to use the value. Which we could put an empty value in there also. Fixture Jake, thank you very much for the 6-month resub. That is awesome. I think you just... Is that 6 months? Is that... That's the adolescent Chatosaurus, isn't it? I think it is. 6 months should be the one that's walking around. That is awesome. And I haven't seen you talk, but welcome to the stream. Let's go ahead and do the same thing here, and this will just get us our basic, just logging of these processes. Since this one also does, a by reference alteration of the bytes, the same way the internal methods work that we're calling. We'll just go ahead and continue that. A lot of memory writing things with byte arrays and stuff like that tend to work this way. So you'll find a lot of that in this style of coding. It's fairly standard. Just stopping in before going to play at a concert. Oh, that's awesome, Fixture Jake. Have fun at the concert and the football game. So good luck. Do well. Take care. So failed to write to game memory. Did I say game in this other one? Failed to read game memory. Yep. Okay, sounds good. Alrighty. So that gets those set up pretty nicely. Did I fix the usings? I did. Okay. Let's get a couple of commits in there, because that's not bad. So, first off, I'm going to commit this one, removing a completed to-do comment. So we already had that to-do done, so we're going to commit that as its own commit. And then these ones are adding logging to that piece. Do I still have the task list? Log here. That's a different one. So I think I got rid of it. Yep, I got rid of the to-do comment, I think. Menu color. Logger, where did we call the logger? Right here. Ah. Yep, so we put a logger in here and we put a logger on that one. Let's make sure that everything still runs. If this build succeeds, then that means that I didn't break any tests, because that means we were building them. Yep, so we were building them dynamically, and then everywhere that we were using it. And then this one, it should, in theory, get ready to participate again, chat, because FF7 is live again. We're going to bring that back up, and there we go. So chat now has control of these again. Let's click some buttons. So that does seem to be changing both things. So for anyone that was wondering, the hub emitter, that's this piece here, that's the one that is getting alerted as a background task. And then the other one that's doing this one, that's the memory accessor. So those are basically the 2 points. When we're doing our color change, we want both of these to change. So we want that one and that one to both change colors. So, and we have to alert them both in different ways. One of them gets alerted through a SignalR request, that's this one. So SignalR basically pushes out to that web page and says, hey, by the way, color is supposed to change. And then this one, we're actually just overwriting the memory directly. So both seem to work nicely. Hey, Mr. Shoji, you made it, welcome. So that looks good. I want to actually confirm that it does log those exceptions. So let's go ahead and do that real fast. Now I have two options. I could either just put in the code an exception. I could just throw an exception, but then I'd have to restart the application. I don't want to do that. So instead what I'm going to do is go into this write memory method right here. And then inside of this one, whoops, I meant to go to the implementation, not the definition. We're going to drop a breakpoint right there. Okay, so these are actually going to get called a whole bunch of times because we do that slow transition of colors, but no worries there. So I'm going to trigger that. So we just caught our breakpoint. So right now it is trying to change the color of the Final Fantasy VII game. So you'll see it is still the default color. It hasn't changed it yet because we caught this breakpoint. So now I'm going to go down into our immediate window and just say 0 divided by, oh, it's going to compiler error that on me. Can I throw new exception from here? Dang it. Not allowed in that context. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to step down to here. Whoops, I didn't mean to jump that far. Whoopsie. Okay, well, either way, we're on this one. So I am going to set this equal to null. Read-only field cannot be assigned to null. Dang it. That's true, I made it read-only. Status hub clients, is this read-only? It's read-only. So everything's apparently read-only. Can I go inside of this method? How do I throw an exception in here? There's no implementation of that. Okay. Well, alright, I'm not going to be able to make the SignalR one throw an exception, but hopefully I can get the other one to do it. So over here, all I have to do is say process equals null. And that's not read-only. So now we should get a null reference exception. And then this one, I think we said we can't make that one fail. So we'll come back here. We should have an individual error logged because of that, because we did make it fail once. And in case you're wondering, the game did change color. And then I want to go in here, and I'm going to open up this application in Explorer and go find that error log that should exist. So I'm going to go into the bin folder, the debug folder, because we're running this in debug mode, so it's going to be over there. And then inside of that, I have a logs folder that I'm going to bring over here onto the screen. So these are our logs. So I do actually have it logging more than just errors, so we'll have a bunch of stuff in here. What is the date today? It is this date right here, so hang on 1 second. Alright. Actually, let's open this up in Notepad. There we go. I know it's not as ideal, but here we go. Actually, let me just make sure that I don't have anything that shouldn't show in here. Log file could potentially have something. What is the time right now? It is... Okay, so this is using local time in the log. That's fine. Oh, that's interesting, yeah. Yeah. Okay, system null reference exception. Okay, yep, got it. Here it is. So let's just copy this and close that. Don't save. Open up a new notepad. Alright, so here's the error that we were looking at. So this is the error exception that we got. And you'll see what it put in here was the date that it happened, date and time that it happened. And it says what time zone it's in. So I'm in UTC -4. And says that it was an error log and it failed to write to game memory, and it was a system null reference exception at this point. Now obviously we created that null reference exception because we set the value to null to make it happen, but you can look and see that we did get the correct stack trace. It knows the line number it's on, so if one of our users runs into a problem, has their log file and sends this to us, we could absolutely track down what potentially happened and fix this. So that, I would say, is a pretty good log right there. We can tell, especially if they tell us what time it happened, and because it is in local time, when they tell us what time it happened, it's going to be what time it happened for them, and I don't have to bother figuring out what their time zone is and translating, which is one of the pains when log files, so log files, for example, being in UTC is not a problem because you can track it down. And like we developers will often say, yeah, no, always store things in UTC, which is fine. You can always store things in UTC. But if you do, it's often a good idea to still record what time zone the event happened in so that you can translate into that, so you can understand when a user tells you, hey, at 3 p.m. I ran into this problem, and you're like, okay, 3 p.m. I don't know what time zone you're in. That, like, I now have to look through the whole log anyway, because I don't know where you are. Then I could also, you could follow up and things like that. But it's nice to have the information if you can. Okay, so looks like our error logging is working. So, yay! We added it in. I'm happy with that. Okay. So we'll push up the previous change, and this is adding logging to the memory menu. We'll say menu color changes. So we added logging to menu color changes, and I probably should have said error logging. Meh, because I did not do any of the other logging. Okay, next up in the task list. Always good stuff having good error log. I agree, Snowly Dev, because it is a pain to track that. So like if we let other people use this and they start reporting errors and we can't find them, it'll be a huge pain in the butt. Displaying the date, time, and time zone on error pages, ones that do not tell users what exactly went wrong, is important too. Yes, 100% S&B. It is hugely important to make sure that you include that kind of information, because it's the only way anyone can really track stuff down. Yep, precisely. If you have that on the error screen that the user has, even if they screenshot or copy paste or something like that, they'll be including the information that you will need in order to track down the problem. Yep. Okay, we apparently have a case insensitivity issue here that I noted at one point, and we probably just didn't have time to fix. We might have been at the end of a stream or something like that, and I just said, hey, no time to fix this, let's just knock this out real fast. So this should be an IEnumerable, so let's do that. So that's word sets. It's funny, it's called word sets. Okay. Alright, so what are we doing? So this is all the word sets. Where the name is not the property name. What's property name? Remove all duplicates. So something else you'll always see me doing on the stream is I have to horizontal scroll a lot, and the reason for that is I keep the zoom level up really high to help all of you see the the text on the screen. That's also why I have to do a lot of like new lining all the time, which is fine. It's just one of those things that's funny. It's like, yeah, so if you notice I do that a lot, yeah, it's because when you zoom in a little bit, you lose a lot of screen real estate. Okay, so remove all duplicates on these, so property names, so it's remove all duplicates of the cost command words, the balance command words. Oh, okay, I got it. Oh, Fuel Snapper, you like big, yeah, I mean, big text is fine. One of the, exactly, yeah, so one of the things that Fuel Snap was commenting on is by having limited real estate, you actually tend to try to make your lines a little bit shorter, things like that. The one exception that I have on that one is something that bugs me is when people try to save too much space on their variable names. Like, an abbreviation is fine now and again, especially if it's well understood within the code base. But like when people get down to the point where they're using like 2- and 3-letter variable names for stuff all the time, it also gets like kind of hard to keep track of what they are. So, and if like everything's an acronym, it can get difficult as well. So, but yeah, shorter lines tends to be a little bit better. But I also want to make sure that you're expressive enough. So it's a fine balance that you got to end up with. Because what you don't want to do is end up with a name like Visual Studio Professional Edition for database developers. Because I kid you not, that was a version of Visual Studio back in like the 2005 era. Because there were special versions of the program for like, this one had all the database integration stuff in it. So it was like they just took the full name and just added on for database professionals. And I'm like, yep, that new lines every single time. It always wraps, and you're like, that is crazy, guys. It's much better now that it's like more plugin based instead of being separate versions every time. Okay, so there's a casing issue here. So select the words. Strings. So where does string, so strings comes in, and then we grab all the, so that's all the, oh, okay, I understand. Okay, so let's talk about how this works. So basically the idea is these need to be unique values across various collections. Every collection is separate, but there cannot be any duplicates among them. So the way this works is I created a collection that is basically a reference to all the other collections. So this is a collection of collections. When we look at this, we find the ones that are ours and we say, hey, ignore my set. So the one that I'm calling from, ignore me. I know I'm going to duplicate with all of mine. And then once you've done that, select all of the words off of the other ones. Once you have all those, so this is the word sets that are not my word set, not the one we're currently checking. So this is like other word sets. So let's do that. So this is other word sets. So for each word set in the other word sets, we want to make sure that we remove all the ones that were in that one. So in order to do that, we need to, we would need to lower that Can I make except case insensitive? Is there a way to make except case insensitive? Ooh, we can use a comparer. High-equality comparer, string comparer. So an high-equality comparer of string. There's got to be a nice way to do this. Let me Google this. High-equality comparer of string, case insensitive. I typoed that. Like, I spelled that horribly, but luckily Google. Case insensitive comparer class. Yeah, that's the one. Is this one that actually exists? Wait, this is hash code comparer? Is this a thing that's just there? Gets an instance of the case-insensitive compare that is associated with this current culture. Visual Studio Novice Edition for senior database developers. Yes, for those people that are very experienced in working with databases and all too new to working in code. What is? Sorry, I missed a whole bunch of chat. Database developers weren't professionals until they got professional version of ES. Oh yeah, that's a good point, Echo Strike. I didn't think about that. 2020 Ultimate Community Edition for professional database developers. Yeah, totally could be. What is... What? See, Fuel Snable, I agree, but you can do a lot of SQL stuff without... You can do a lot of database stuff without working in SQL. It was a joke about the, like, senior database, novice, something or other. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there you go, S&B. That's perfect. The VS... Vstud ed for shirt varms. Clearly that end was memes, because we not variable memes, but yes. All right. So what is the challenge here? Inaudible string does not contain a definition for except. Wait, what? Inaudible strings. This must be the problem. Case-insensitive comparer cannot be a generic high-equality comparer of string. Was it just a comparer? It's just an comparer. That's a good point. That wasn't quite the right one. Yeah, I think this person's doing the same thing, but they're not doing the same thing. Maybe? Oh, string comparer, current culture, ignore... yeah, this might be the one that we want. String comparer. There's the one. I just pulled the wrong one. Okay, so essentially we're telling our accept, hey, you know... So I want to make sure that I keep the casing, because the casing that the user typed in, they might want to have because they might want it to display that way because it might read better, or they want to make sure it's clear that something, for example, is like... whether something is an I or an L or something like that, depending on fonts, when it shows in the chat. I don't know if there's ever a problem with that on Twitch or in our application, for that matter. But this should make it a little bit clearer, and that'll do a case-insensitive comparison. So let's go ahead and try that. We'll take a look and see if it happens. Want to hear someone say comparer 100 times? Tune into a programming stream. Comparer. Compare. It is true. That's a word that's really only going to come up in a programming stream. All right. So what is this thing that we were working on, you might ask? Let's head over here. We'll take a look at the command list. So if you'll look on this, you'll notice that these are all the various words that you could use to trigger a command in the program. So, for example, the cost command words are listed right here. Costs, cost, price, prices. And I could put in foobar, and you'll notice foobar gets added to the list. Now, if I come down here and I say foobar, you'll see it immediately disappears. I cannot keep foobar anywhere else. Foobar. Wait. Whoops, I dotted that one. I meant to comma that one. And it gets nuked. But if I remove the first one, then all of a sudden I can add foobar down here. So only one of these lists can have any given word at any given time, and that's the restriction that we just added in. So this removes it. I sound like Steve. Which Steve, S&B? I sound like Ardalis? I don't know. I don't know which Steve you're claiming I sound like. I wouldn't be surprised if I sound like Steve. I'm from the same part of the world. I should have roughly the same accent as Steve, if that's what you mean. That's Steve. Compares. Yeah, exactly. Right? Yes, there are a lot of Steves. Not as, at least within the .NET stack, not as many as there are Scots. I mean, like, holy cow, do we have a lot of Scots. There's like Scott Goose, Scott Who, Scott Ha, there's Scott, because, I mean, just looking at Microsoft Scots, because there's Scott Kate, there's Scott Hanselman, Hunter, Guthrie, and then there's actually a whole bunch of other Scots that are not even the ones that work at Microsoft and are Microsoft MVPs and ASP insiders and things like that, because there's just a massive I don't know why that name is so popular among developers. Maybe it was just there's Scott Allen as well. There's Scott Forsyth, whole bunch of Scots. Yes, it's all the same person. He just goes around. He does all this stuff. Michael Scott is your favorite Scott, Fuel Snable? Yeah. I'm not sure I want to pick favorite Scots. That seems like a strange thing for me to do, since I know a lot of Scots. Either way, that seems to have not broken anything. Let's close that, and oh yeah, Scotty from Star Trek, yeah. Yeah, and then, great Scots. Yes, we all love making the great Scots joke. Yep, Scotty. I might be a Trekkie. Oh man, that's fun. It kind of goes transparent a little bit, but yeah, might be a Trekkie. You never know. All right, so make command word restriction case insensitive. And before anybody freaks out and thinks that I'm a just a Trekkie, I do want to point out that I do have a stack of Star Wars books, and by stack I mean whole bookshelf full of Star Wars books, literally within reach of me right now, and including well, for example, this is a signed book of Timothy Jean's, so I don't pick my I don't pick just one nerdy franchise to be in. So all the Tolkien's actually in another room, so I can't reach all that. But a whole bunch of other stuff too. Any Firefly fans in here? Might be, but yeah. Always love all the sci-fi nerdy stuff. It's great fun. Echo Strike can't wait for Picard. Let's see. Do you think they will ever make Star Wars Episodes 1? Oh man, that would be great if they made some prequels to the original Star Wars trilogy, S&B. I agree, that would be fantastic. Yeah, Firefly was a good one. People have asked before whether or not I think it was people have brought up the question of whether it was a good thing that it ended when it did. And to that I mean that there's a chance that the show would have gotten worse, because there are a lot of shows that don't survive a lot of seasons. I still would rather it have kept going. However, I can see their point. The show might have ended, we all love the show, but maybe it wouldn't have been, maybe it wouldn't have had a good, few seasons that followed. It's hard to say, but I enjoyed what exists, and so I have trouble complaining about that. Never watched more than 3 episodes of the original Firefly. Oh, yeah. So Snowly Dev, I know a lot of people that that watched a few episodes and didn't like it. It's one that you gotta really like the characters, because that's really what Joss Whedon's about. Is he loves big ensemble cast stuff, and so if you don't fall in love with his characters, then the show is not one you're gonna like. But if you learn to like his character, that he, any characters that are created in one of his stories, you're gonna love the show, and that's pretty much the way it goes with any of Whedon's stuff. We crashing again, Cap. Yes, good stuff. Oh, Fuel Snable, I agree. Firefly probably had at least one additional good season in it. The concern is that you don't want it to go off the rails at some point and get bad, because that really can ruin a show, because then we have to make statements like what S&B was joking about with Star Wars, where you say, I sure wish they'd make a prequel trilogy kind of thing, because then it's like, yeah, you have to start denying that parts of a show exist if it ever goes off the rails. So, a remake of Babylon 5. To be honest, Babylon 5 did not hold up that well. It's super campy now. I mean, it kind of was even at the time. It's a good show, but it's one of those, like, I think because of some of the design and aesthetic decisions, I think it's one of the ones that it's like, oh, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's a product of the 90s. Like, that looks like a 90s show. Whereas there are some other things in the 90s that I think held better. Like, I think Stargate SG-1 held a little bit better, holds up better today than Babylon 5 did. And there's some other things as well. Like, it just depends on what you decided to do in the moment. Yeah, exactly. So, and Fuel Stable, I agree. SGU is another one of those shows that got canceled right as it was getting good. No SG-1 spoilers. Is it a spoiler to say that SG-1 exists and I like it? That's not a spoiler. But yeah, if you haven't seen it, go check it out. It actually does hold up pretty well. Because I think a lot of it's just got basic comedy in it. So it's one of those, like, they just, did, like, I would say long-lasting comedy. It's not like, it wasn't really specific to its time. They weren't, like, doing... Like, some comedies, they'll do stuff where they, like, reference a lot of current pop culture stuff, and that's where the jokes stop landing. Because, like, 20, 30 years down the road, people don't know those references anymore. Like, it's like, even if you were alive back then, you'll forget that a lot of these, like, you will not remember all the references. You'll be like, oh, I remember something about that. I don't remember all this stuff. In the middle of my backswing, S&B? And yes, I'm hoping I at least impressed someone by being able to immediately get S&B's reference. Yeah, exactly, Fuel Snable. Your Dan Quayle jokes. And that's the point, is like, if you make Dan Quayle jokes and stuff like that, they won't land 30 years later. Like, that's just not how it works. Alright. So where are we here? So we got that change in. Let's have a look at our next item on the task list. Exclude these from no, we're not doing that one. Message box item we want to save. I think we sort of worked around this. So updated from Twitch equals true. So we display a message saying that it was updated. Maybe we should make that message go away when we request the change. Ignore. Hey, Sudamods, welcome. It's going pretty well. We are just chit-chatting about sci-fi stuff right now while making some code changes. So people now know that there's actually a bookshelf next to me that is covered in... Sudamods! Thank you very much for the 3-month resub. You just hatched out of your egg, my friend. That is awesome, and welcome. Hi, greetings. And S&B, thank you for spinning up that hype. Yeah, so I was pointing out to everybody that within reach over here, I have a whole bunch of Star Wars books right now. Another one, actually, that I should mention to people, this is the first book in the series, so I should probably show this one. This is another one of my favorite series. It's not sci-fi, but Jim Butcher's Dresden Files series. So this is actually the first book in the series. So if you are someone that likes ongoing series about like interesting, like funny characters, this is a really, really good one. I love the characters in this book. Basically, the series is about a wizard who is a detective in modern times. It's absolutely crazy, because like you just gotta sit there. You're like, okay, cool. You know, like that's not the so. What I say, there's a lot of like modern fantasy stories that people have started creating recently, and I'm not a big fan of most of them, but this one I actually am. And one of the things I really like about the series is that it's one where the stories get better as you go. So actually, some of the worst books in this series are like this one. This is by far one of the worst books in the series. It's the first one. I think this is the first one if I'm remembering correctly, and then the second one is Full Moon, I think. That or I have them flipped. Either way, the first few books in the series are very good books, but they're the worst of the series. And additionally, one of the other things I like about it is the long-running series where the author they're not the same type of story every time. So like, without getting into spoilers, one of them is a heist novel, for example. So it's some of them feel more like, you know, noir, like mystery style stuff. Some of the like, and so each one has like different styles and themes. So the author really explored a lot of stuff in writing it. So it's very fun. It's a very good series. I like it a lot. So if you haven't seen it, you know, take a look. You might like it. And yeah, it's apparently Book Recommendation Saturday. Whoop. Don't know why it whooped again. I don't know why it whooped multiple times, but Mr. Shoji, you want to know where I got that animation from? So I mean, you can find that online. They actually did a full you can find a video of it, where they actually did that whole routine where Bill and Steve, you know, like did a whole like parody of Night at the Roxbury. I would play it, except the last time I played it on stream, I got a copyright claim on my video, which is annoying. I'm like, I played like only a handful of seconds of that song, and like I didn't even play 10 seconds of the song, and I even cut it off saying like, yeah, I don't want to play this because I don't want to get a copyright claim, and it got one anyway, and I was like, wow, okay guys, just, you know, 10 seconds. No. I don't think Dresden Files popularized urban fantasy. I think urban fantasy was also becoming popular at the same time. I think it's just one of the stories that was in that, but it since has become a very popular, like, theme of story. Theme? I'll have to check those books. I'm a big fan of him, S&B, and the only challenge is that the author started writing a bunch of other stuff, so while he has stated that there's only a couple of books left in the series, and we're still waiting on the second to last book, so it's one of those, like, if you just want to read them slowly over time, it's a really good series for that. It'll keep you going for quite a while, because they're pretty quick reads. They're just standard books, but it's like, you know, regular just fantasy novel size books, so none of them are like the, you know, big beast books. They're not like, you know, Mal's and Book of the Fallen or something crazy like that. They'll be quick reads. Echo Strike, you really like Jim Butcher's other fantasy series more. Okay, so you're a Codex of Alara person. See, that's one of those things. I know a lot of people that have read Codex of Alara, and I sit there and I'm like, no, I will not buy those books because I want you to finish Dresden Files. So yeah, I'm like the get off my lawn, get back to your other series type fan. Which I will probably read Codex Alara as soon as he finishes the Dresden Files. As soon as the Dresden Files is done, I'm going to go read all of Codex Alara. So, see, that's the deal, Mr. Butcher. Just go ahead and finish that one, and then we'll go read all your other books. Oh, yeah, Mr. Shoji, yeah, you can find it easy. I just don't want to show it on stream because I'll get a copyright claim again. Codex Alara is Roman soldiers with Pokemon. Yeah, well, that was the like, you know, story like theme behind it. It's I can make a series about anything, so it's gonna be those. And yeah, exactly, S&B, because he wants my you know, $10 a book so bad he's clearly going to finish that series now because of my threats, you know. That's the idea. Like he really wants to get me to buy a whole set of Codex Alara books. All right, so here's what we wanted to change. We want to make it so that this value gets set when this happens. So where is the command trigger? When do we call out to that? I need to find an MVVM command. I think that's what I called them. In here, MVVM commands, show Twitch auth command. Here it is. Okay. So where did this get called? Yeah, here it is. Twitch auth view model. Why does .distinct work? Why does .distinct not work in remove all duplicates? That's a great question. We could do a .distinct on that, I think. Because we're trying to limit down to just the one set, so we could do a .distinct potentially, but you got to remember that we want it distinct from other collections. So distinct within a single set is one thing, but even once we did that, we would still have to pull out the original set. So if we merge all the lists together and say we want a distinct set, we can have a full distinct list. But the problem is, in merging all the collections together, we've lost the original information of which ones belong in which set, because they really are distinct collections. That's funny that I used the word distinct for that. They're each their own collection. They're each an individual collection. That's a much better word. Twitch off. No, Twitch auth. Auth as in like authorization, as in like OAuth. Alright, I'm not a huge fan of this, but can I... You know what? I'm just gonna do it like this. Settings, data from Twitch, equals false. If they click that button, we turn that off. Okay. That should do it. Yeah, awesome. Yeah, sorry about that weird, like, my brain also clicked into the, wait, you're totally right, I could have just done distinct at first. Then I was like, oh no, wait, no, there's an intricacy involved that made us write it that way. So, it was possible that it was one of those, like, I just had a brain fart when we originally wrote it, but no, we did it that way for a reason. So... Okay. Oh, I didn't delete the to-do. We no longer need that message box because we displayed a message here. So this is bound to the display of something. So because of that, we don't need the message box telling them about it. So this is that. Oh, hang on. Show Twitch auth command. Show Twitch auth command. Need to fix the usings before I commit. Otherwise, they'll get all messed up. There we go. Now the usings are correct. Okay. Hide. Updated message when calling for new OAuth token. So if we ask for another token, we don't want to still be displaying the message. Do I have it running? Yes, so he just read that this command was there, and yes, you can change it. So S&B is showing how you can change the outside one, but we've got new people in here, so first off, if you're new here, welcome. I'm going to toss a bunch of links in chat because you might find them interesting regardless of anything else. But I will run our program real fast so you can see what it does. So eStealth, if you want to take a look at what that command actually does, since you jumped in here and typed it, I will refresh this page and I will bring up the game. So we've got this page. So this little application here, this is the Seng status overlay. So if everybody saw Mr. Shoji show up at one point earlier in the stream, he's actually the guy that wrote this part of it, and we found a nice way to integrate it and add some features to it by bringing it into FF7, which is the program we're building here, the WPF one. And then in addition, you can actually run commands now. So that menu random command that eStealth tried running. Oh yeah, you can do menu Suna. And thanks for that follow, eStealth. No, it's Estelleth. I misread that. So hopefully I pronounced that right. If there's a better way for me to pronounce that, let me know, and I will try to get it better. So sorry about that if I messed it up. I did just read. Did the stream pause? No, shouldn't have. So, yep. Suna, that's a named color palette. So Suna's not a color. It's a named color palette. Oh, you know each other. Okay, that's why the Suna question mark. Probably need to fix the initial color check at some point. Yes, Mr. Shoji, you're absolutely right. Because I don't have the initial color check running right now. We switched over to just being push. But probably what we should do is make it so that if it has never been sent a color, it occasionally pings back to find out. Or actually, we could maybe just make it on a fairly long interval. So an initial check and then a fairly long interval to update color, just so that it doesn't interfere with the pushing. But a way to get a color updated. So colors change nicely when you run the various commands, and we can switch back to the default color palette as well, and that works as well. Let's see. Okay. So I figured I'd show people what was going on here since someone tried to run a command. So. There we go. Let's take a look at the next item in our task list. What is still on here? Make this looks up based on settings, not on the item. Oh yeah, we do have to do that. This offset mapping needs to be completed. What? Oh, yeah, it totally does. But I'm not going to do that right now because that is not required for our current version of the application. So. Log here. Can we log here? Not sure if we can log here. Not nicely, at least. Process connector. Actually, wait. Maybe we can log here. What creates this? Oh, yes, we can log here. Yeah, we can totally log here. Yep, this'll work. Where? Those are properties. That's a field. Put the constructor here. This will take in an iLogger of type process connector logger. So again, we're going to use dependency inversion and an IOC container to get access to this logger. So when it creates this class, it's going to automatically give us this logger. And then down here, we can just log that there was an error. Getting this process. We're not catching the exception. Exception EX. EX, and what happened here? That's an error obtaining the FF7 process. Obtaining error connecting to FF7 process. There we go. Hang on, let me catch up on chat here for a sec. Mr. Shoji, an on-load check would probably be best, or on-connection get state. Yeah, so Mr. Shoji, we'll probably do some kind of an on-load. I am tempted to make the... I'm tempted to have everything for the status display, not just these ones. So we're going to need to do it for all the menu displays, but I'm tempted to have the application run Vue.js because I'm a big fan of Vue.js, and essentially just bind all the status values. And wait, I think we already had you do Vue, didn't we? Yeah, so we can just do it on mounted. Do a check there, so that would actually work fine. And then we would not actually, so we could do it through SignalR, but I actually left an API endpoint, so we can connect that way as well. Just need 2.5 compare. Yes, exactly. We need comparers. Yeah, exactly, Mr. Shoji. I remembered after I was suggesting that it was already using Vue.js. So it's been a while since I've looked in that code, so that's part of why. So error connecting to FF7 process. So we'll do that for now. How frequently is this accessed? This isn't like game database loader. Millisecond searching for the process. Is this gonna like repeatedly hit it? Does it have a way out that's not an error? Okay, so most of the time it's just gonna return back null. This is just if it had an error. But most of the time it is going to, yeah. These aren't going to throw errors, they'll return null. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't going to be like logging constantly, so this program wasn't depending on an exception catch. So because of that, we're not going to run into a problem here. So that is good. I was just making sure that if anyone was wondering why you don't want to have, like, at least, you know, there are a variety of reasons, but you don't want to use exception handling as a normal application flow control when you're programming. So that means don't make the normal path of your program require exceptions to be thrown. It's bad practice for a variety of reasons, one of them being another developer could do what I just did and add a logger to it. And if you were just using that as a mechanism, you'd be logging all the time, even though there wasn't really an error. And it also means that anytime someone puts in like just a general error logging piece or an error handler piece, it would need to know about that. And then there's also the fact that in a lot of systems, C# included, the handling of exceptions takes a lot longer than just doing a check. So a lot of frameworks actually are like that, where the exception handling does take some time. So you need to keep that in mind when you're doing these types of things. Matt Summers Dev, welcome. Thanks for that follow. Very much appreciated. Welcome to the stream. The null coalescing assignment is a syntax you've not seen before. Is that assign if null and return? Mr. Shoji, yes it is. That is assign if null and return. It's a really, really awesome little feature there. Where was I doing it? Do I have that? Do I have that somewhere? Oh, it's right here. Yeah. Right there. So this is what Mr. Shoji was talking about. This is the null coalescing assignment. So what this says is, if this value is null, then assign it equal to the value from get process, and return that value. So it's just a nicer way of writing. Let me see if I can to assignment. Yeah. So it's a nicer way of writing this. So this is what we would have written before. We would have said this value and then or return this value or that. So assign to this one the value of this, and instead we're just doing that. So it's if that's null, assign this one into it. And actually, that's interesting. We actually could have just returned from here, and it would have undone the lock also. So we could return at that point, but there's no reason to. So, either way, do you need the if statements now? No, S&B, I don't think we do. Yeah, you're right. The if statement is not necessary. Because that is still an if null check. I also saw an interesting thing on Twitter recently that I just remembered about that I want to talk to you all about. So this right here, notice I wrote is null, and I did not do an equals equals null like this. And there's a couple of things about that. So first off, these are not the same. And someone on Twitter commented, they said something along the lines of, you shouldn't be changing the way you program based on, like, some problem that someone could create. So in C#, because we allow operator overloading, someone can redefine equals to be whatever they want. So if someone creates an equality object and they mess up the equality comparison with null, then they're basically suggesting that you want that to throw an error so that you can find it and fix it. And I kind of sit there and I go, well, yeah, I agree, we do want to find that, but I also want my code to work, and and comparing with null seems like a special thing, and to be honest, like, I think we overuse like null values in a lot of our programming anyway, so I would rather get to the point where we're checking if an object has been initialized in this way instead of comparing with null, because a comparison with null feels like I'm checking if the value of it is null, not if it's like uninitialized, whereas this feels like it's not initialized to me. So this gets me thinking a little bit differently. But yes, FuelSnable, I agree. We should be trying to get rid of null values in general in C#. Use null is pattern. Yes, the is. Yeah, exactly. Yes, the is going to use pattern matching to solve it. It's going to see whether or not the variable is the constant null. So null in C# is actually a constant value that can be compared against, and this will only come back true if that value is null. Whereas I can technically go operator overload the equals sign for any type and just say, yeah, equals null is going to always be true. You know, like, I can just mess with no one's going to do that, but someone could definitely mess up their quality, their iEquality implementation if you write a custom one for your type. You can mess it up. Yes, Mr. Shoji. There's weirdness in a lot of languages. C# 8 will have pattern matching overloading. Echo Strike, I hope not, but if that'd be scary. Oh yes, so Snowly Dev really likes the fact that that JavaScript will just change the type to fit whatever it needs to be at the time. So exactly. It's one of those things that's like, yeah, JavaScript does it. It's nice sometimes, but it's also a bit scary. Because types just change to meet the current need in ways that it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, yeah, it was totally that. Yeah, that's safe. Okay, so we added some musings, cleaned that up, added a logger. So add logging to the process connector. That's good. So tying up a lot of these little loose ends, getting a lot of these little pieces in here. Without logging, we don't want to release this because if we do run into any bugs or something like that, we want to know that there was a problem and we want to be able to fix them. And then this offset mapping needs to be completed. Yeah, no it doesn't. What are these? This is equipment settings, item settings, material settings, and this is the item command. Make this lookup based on settings, not on the item. What is this doing? It's allowed to use the command. I'm not sure on this one. I don't remember what I meant. So you might remember from earlier in the stream I talked about how these to-do comments are useful for guiding you to the right place, and for small little tasks and things like that, they're good indicators of where something needs to happen. But for anything more significant, like what this one is, a GitHub issue would probably be better. But I'm not sure what that change is. Echo Strike, that is a fantastic question. The question was about default implementations of interfaces, and have I tried it, and what are my thoughts on it? So initial thought, so early on when I heard about it, I was kind of like, oh man, that is a scary, scary thing. I've talked about it being controversial here on the stream before, and it absolutely is totally controversial. The feature is, I think, well implemented. So there's some weirdness that I know that some people don't like about it, and that is that you sometimes have to be, so you have to be explicit about the type that you're calling it on, but that is to avoid multiple inheritance. So for anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about in C#, there's a concept, there's an abstraction concept called an interface. An interface is basically a type that exists within C#, and it really is just defining the public members that a type exists. So when a concrete object implements an interface, it means I have these specific interaction points that are public and available for people to use. When you do that, you're basically saying, here's how you work with me. So you can treat me as that interface and I will work just fine. That's the concept. The way that it works is C# allows us to actually have multiple interfaces. We can have interface implementation inheritance, and that works great. The reason it works so well is that there are no implementations of an interface. So you just define that it exists. You define nothing about how it works. In C#8, they're adding default implementation. So you can say if the type did not define how this method works, instead use my version of it. The trick is that because you can already have multiple interfaces on the same type, they needed to be very cautious about how it implements. In order to avoid the diamond thing where you have like one thing and two, like any of the problems with multiple inheritance, of which there are many, they needed to be very, very careful about the implementation. So talking about scenarios for it, there are a lot of ways to use it poorly, but then again, I think that inheritance in general needs to be used cautiously in object-oriented programming. It has some value, but you need to think about how you use it. Specifically related to the default implementation, the example that I always give is, interestingly, one that we use in our bot. I think we used it in I think we might have used it in our bot application here, and if not, we talked about it. And that is, we have command objects that we created, and those are the commands that you type in chat that talk to our bot. We have an object for each one of those commands that you can call, and so that nicely encapsulates that logic. So things like the implementation of how you determine whether or not you need to run that code. In the beginning, we made an abstract class, so we have both an interface and an abstract class, and the reason for the abstract class was just so that we could have a default implementation of one of the methods that 90% of our commands were going to do the same way. So starting from the beginning, that would be something that you could put in the interface, and it would not be that crazy to have done, because it's just a very simple, like, hey, should I run? Like, it's just a check of, like, did you use my command word? And if so, I should execute. And that's generally how that piece works. But the canonical example of default implementation in interfaces being used, hang on one second. Excuse me, I had to cough there. I didn't want to do that into the mic. Figured you'd appreciate it. The canonical example is you have an interface of which you have many implementations already, and you want to add a new method to it. So in this example, the idea is that if you add a new method to an interface, which shouldn't be done often, but comes up, you'd then have to go to, say, a dozen locations where you've implemented that interface and add in the new feature. Well, it might be that most of them could use the same implementation. So you give a default, and then you've reduced the amount of effort to change an interface that already exists. So it makes maintaining existing code bases a little bit easier, is the theory behind it. There are some other good uses for it. The concern, obviously, is that if people just start using it all the time, that we could get some really, really nasty code. So again, with all things in programming, when you get useful new tools, you gotta make sure you use them the right ways and for the right reasons. I'm gonna go with Pofa, but welcome, and I probably just butchered your name. If I did, let me know how to say it better, and I will try to do better next time. But welcome, thank you for that follow. Glad you're enjoying the stream and our discussions today. Let's see. What do we got back here? They didn't really sell it on the last VS Twitch channel thing. Diamond interface now possible in C#. Yeah, but Fuel Snable, so the Diamond, it actually still works fine. So yes, the Diamond exists, but it works okay. Let's see, just some quirks that are totally weird, but I like that you can purely check if it exists or not. Yeah, null's value is undefined. Stoolpenner, good evening, welcome. Welcome to the stream. I said it tongue-in-cheek, but I do think I want only valid values, not null or undefined. Yeah, so Fuel Snable, I agree. In most programming, it's best if we can try to avoid null and undefined values. So that's one of the reasons for adding the nullable reference types in C# is so that we can actually block our program from having null values. Now, in C#, that's done mostly through compilation checks, but it works pretty nicely all the same. So here's the question: should link have been implemented using default methods? Fuel Snable, I don't know. I would need to spend a lot of time thinking about that one to come up with So I think the real question that's coming out of that's not should it. So I think. Yeah, so we'll remove the word have and say, should it be re-implemented using default methods? So essentially make a default method version of it on the IEnumerable object. And I think the short answer is maybe? I'd really need to think about the consequences of that. But I agree, there's some value in actually being on the object instead of always being an extension. But yeah, there's absolutely some value in that. So... Yep. Default implementations make it easier to violate open and close, but you still shouldn't violate open and close. In some ways, and in some ways not. So I think the ending answer is that, yes, you obviously still want to follow the open-close principle where you can, and I do think that this actually allows you to follow it pretty well still, because if you are doing something like the strategy pattern, that obviously is a way of following the open-close principle, you might be interested in making sure that, again, the canonical example, I need to add a thing to this, to all of these objects, and yes, it is changing them, but that comes up sometimes. And so the idea is that we do occasionally have to go through our code, but the idea is we want to make sure that most new feature additions don't require that type of change. But obviously, for anyone that's really discussed the open and closed principle a lot, you know that Okay, let me back up for a second. Hi everyone. The open and closed principle is part of the solid principles of object-oriented design, and it says that your code should be open to extension and closed to modification. The intention of this is that when you need to add new features, you don't want to be changing too much existing code. And so the thought is you want to do things that are parameterized or that are injecting in objects and things like that. So you can change the behavior by creating new objects instead of always having to go in and change and alter the existing code. Because when you change the existing code, you are more prone to creating bugs and things like that, especially when all you're trying to do is add new features. So The problem with the open-close principle is that it adds complexity. So whenever you follow it, it adds complexity. If you wanted to absolutely always be following the open-close principle, you would have the most complex, convoluted solution ever, because it would be infinitely flexible without changing any existing code. That would require the most complex thing you can think of. And so the way that we always talk about, and by we I mean like I know a lot of other people that talk about solid principles and object-oriented programming and the open-close principle specifically. And the question that at least I'm asked, and I know that other people are asked, is when do I implement this? Because we can all see it adds complexity. And so the thought usually is sometimes you just know, hey, this is a time to use it. Other times it's you want to wait until you're going to have to make a change, and then you say, okay, how can I refactor this to avoid this change in the future? Because the fact that you changed it once means it's more likely to come up again. So that's the big thing is, it's the same thing with like, when do I refactor duplication? Not until I've got at least 2 or 3 instances of this thing, because just because there, like, I think there might be duplication in the future is not a reason to add complexity. And so it's the same thing with the open-close principle. Not until you are seeing, oh, I have a need for this, that's when you follow it and implement it. And that keeps you kind of limited. And it also makes sure that you focus to the right places. Because as developers, we take a lot of guesses on what we think is going to happen in the future without necessarily waiting for it to happen. And that's tendency for me, it's tendency for, I'm sure, most of the people in the stream. That's why we have so many principles that are things like, Yagni, you aren't going to need it kind of stuff. So, like, it's standard developer trait to try to over-engineer stuff, and that's why I caution people when I say open-close principle is fantastic. Just make sure you wait to implement it until it's obvious that it's needed. Let me catch up on chat real fast just to make sure I didn't miss anything. Your gripe with default methods is that I can't add your own default methods to an interface I don't own. With extension methods I can. Yeah, so FuelSnable, you've hit across a very important point. So something I've actually been pushing for a long time in C# is something similar to concepts. Concepts. That's a word, like concepts. It is a feature that people have been trying to get into C++ for a long time. I want to get a similar thing in C#. Essentially, what I want to be able to have is a way of defining a type. So I've been suggesting that we do something along the lines of, like, I like the term auto-implementing interfaces, where your type doesn't explicitly implement an interface, but we can say it does. So essentially, I can say I want an object that I want to create an interface and say and call it an auto interface, right? And say any type that has the definition I've defined here, any of those types will work. So I will accept any of them. If you have those, yep, come on in. You can be a valid type for this. And so what that lets me do then is I could go and I could say, hey, someone has this interface. I want to add a type to it. Okay, so I'm going to duplicate their interface, make my own version of it, and I can add any method I want into it. And so that would actually let you do the same thing, FuelSnable, because you could create your own version of the interface, say that it's auto-implementing, so all of the existing .NET class library types that you want to use would implement it, and you can call your method on it, and it would work great. Human very good. Yes, we obviously over-engineer as developers. Totally a thing. Seen a lot of people that follow the principles of functional code and dislike OOP. I can see them cause building factories for everything. Yeah, so the nice thing, Snowly Dev is actually talking about something interesting here, which is that there are actually a lot of programming paradigms out there, and they all have they've got values in different types of things. So there are certain types of programming that I think are handled very well by different programming paradigms. And that's one of the great things about programming is there's not just one way to solve them. And one of the other things I like is that there are a lot of programming languages that are evolving over time. So C# is actually getting a lot more functional concepts. So there's a running joke in the community that eventually C# is just going to end up with every feature that F# has. And at which point you could just do functional programming with C# if it eventually evolves that far. Okay, what is this? I got a simple question. You haven't gotten into .NET Core yet. What's the biggest difference from earlier versions of .NET? .NET Core is lighter weight and cross-platform. There's the short answer. It's lighter weight, it's faster. It's new implementations because they were able to hit the reset button. They were able to rewrite a lot of things from the ground up. So it's basically just the newer newer version of it. Let's see. Functional programming has its own patterns. Yes, exactly. Field stable is correct. So in that we have design principles for object-oriented programming, there are the same concept in all programming paradigms, not just functional programming, not just object-oriented programming. Any type of programming you've got, there's guidance on how to do things well. You have a question. You mean in items.all, what is it? Because items is call singular default message at all. How does that work? No. Your question is not your question is not a stupid question. I just have to translate what was said there. I will do my best. Okay, so quick explanation. So items in this case is a static type. It has a static collection on it because the default items inside of the game that we're matching with just exist, so we just put them in code for now. We did not pull this from data. We did this as a temporary way of getting this into our program and just having it work. So we actually have all of the items in Final Fantasy VII are actually listed in this collection in order, and then the singular default says there should be only one item that has this item ID, so get it, and if not, leave it as default, which means it's going to be null. So that's what this null check is here. It's just saying, hey, if the item was null, then go ahead and return, but if not, then go ahead and add it to the collection is just the idea with that. So that's all that one is. And so some people are used to seeing, like, your question might have been around, oh yeah, so what is all? All is just a static collection. So static generic collection. That's it. Both F sharp and C sharp are multi-paradigm. Yes, exactly. Yep, correct. So field stable, I agree. There's the joke that they're gonna eventually meld into one and shift that way, and you could really use C sharp or F sharp either way. But yeah, it is a joke. I am absolutely certain that Microsoft is going to keep the direction and the primary paradigm of F sharp and C sharp separate, where F sharp is clearly a functional language and C sharp is clearly an object-oriented programming language. However, they are finding lots of ways to bring them together and share some of those concepts, which is what makes C sharp and F sharp good languages. It is the fact that they are developing in ways that are allowing you to use the other paradigms, and I think that is what makes them so strong. But I mean, obviously they're not the only languages that do that. Lots of languages do that. That's one of the things that makes languages so good. For example, if you've noticed, JavaScript had, like, a lot of the new features JavaScript's been getting lately, you look at it and you go, like, as a C# developer, you sit there and you go, this syntax is going to be a problem because JavaScript is becoming a lot more like C# as it goes along. And that's like, it's not like they're trying to be like C#. That's not what I mean. What I mean is they're getting a lot of the same kinds of, like, object-oriented concepts into JavaScript, and you see these things like, oh, they're getting, like, classes as a concept in here, and they're doing some other things along those same lines. And you watch and you're like, when async and await came out, and it was like, you look at the version that's in JavaScript and you look at the version that's in C# and you're like, those look the same. Like, and you look at the lambda expressions that are in C# with the arrow syntax that we have here, and then you look in JavaScript and you're like, they're doing arrow methods now too. It's like arrow functions now too, and we're sitting here, we're like, this is gonna get confusing. Like, they keep adding the same syntax to do the same stuff. Oh, I was already having trouble, like, where I would be typing along and it's like muscle memory. I just do, so I always screwed up because I do the, no matter what, whenever I'm in C#, I'll end up using JavaScript syntax, and when I'm in JavaScript, I'll use C# syntax, where they ever so slightly vary, and you're like, ugh. My brain just does the thing it wants to do. That's the case. So what's the question? Oh, could I do a null assignment here? I don't think So I'm not sure exactly where you're suggesting I would use that. TypeScript and C# are very... Yes, TypeScript is even more like C#, but that is because it was, created by a C# person. Where did C# get the arrow function from? Stares at Java? Did Java use that arrow syntax first? I don't know. When did Java get lambda expressions? That's a great question. When did they get them? Java 8. Okay. When did they get added to C#? I don't remember. Does anybody remember what version they... I don't remember what version. 2014? I think that was C#3. Lambda expressions, C#3, lambda expressions, yeah. So 2007? Yeah, exactly, Fuel Snable. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'm fairly certain C# is like, since about C#3, Lambda Java has been trailing C# by at least 5 years, in almost every feature they added. So I was like, I don't think C# grabbed it from that. It's funny because I actually used to do a lot of C++ and Python before I switched to C#, so I was quite annoyed by not having lambda expressions, and the delegates in C# in the early days were just, well, let's just say we don't talk about those very much. But yeah, no. So everybody looks at each other for syntax and concepts and things like that. That's how languages improve over time. So Fuel Snable's totally right. That is absolutely. They look at other languages, they like what they're doing, and that's where our languages improve. That's actually what makes them great. Is when you're looking at a mature, good language, it should be stealing stuff from other languages. When you look at another language and say, wow, they're doing really cool stuff there, we should do that same thing, that's when you're on a good platform. But in addition to just adding it, you want to look at how they did it. So that's kind of the idea. Is you want to make sure that when you're choosing a language to build upon, to build stuff with, first off, look at what it's good for, and make sure that you're choosing a language that's going to work well for your purposes. But also, you want to look at how the language is evolving if you're planning on investing in it in the long term. So JavaScript is making a lot of good improvements. I think JavaScript is going to have an awesome future because of that. They're making a lot of good changes to the language, and they're really improving it, and the community around it is building. So JavaScript, awesome, good stuff. And that being said, whether I like the language or not, it doesn't matter. And I can look at a lot of other languages and say the same kinds of things. All these programming languages that we all use for things, they do great stuff. It's hard to be critical of them. But when choosing a place to go, I like to recommend that people do, choose a place where things are developing over time, where you can get some of these improvements. So look at the stewardship of the language and see how it's changing. That's my main suggestion on that. But it's slightly different there. Maybe they took it from Java has default interface implementations. Oh yeah, so Echo Strike, you're right. They did do that one. But I don't know. Like, it's funny, the really controversial one. I'm surprised, and I'm actually kind of impressed that Java was willing to do that one. Good thing I got that cleared up. I always imagined it was the other way around, but yeah, they got yeah. So languages always steal that stuff from each other all the time. Haskell took it from lambda calculus. Yeah, I had to learn lambda calculus when I was in university. It's like, I think the maker of Go actually stated they didn't want to be like every other language. Oh yeah, so that is actually a valid point. Other languages are becoming fairly similar, so it is nice to have some originality. And whether that originality means that anything is good or bad is all subjective, but it's nice because it adds another viewpoint for the other languages to pull from. So I think it's a good thing whether it ends up nicely or not. Being different for the sake of being different is not a great design choice. Yes, precisely, S&B, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't benefit the community overall. Just different for different sake does not mean it's going to be better. It doesn't mean it's going to be worse. It just means it's going to be different. So you should have reasons for the things that you do differently, and hopefully you design a good system out of it. But from an external perspective, we are all able to look at that and say, okay, you did a whole bunch of stuff differently. Which of those things you did differently were effective, and we can take those. So that's kind of the cool thing about it, is we actually get the chance to do those things. So very, very cool stuff there. Okay, so whoops. Oh, that's a big message. What is that? You're going to be interviewing for an entry-level C# .NET developer position in a couple of weeks. Nostalgic Gnome. First off, good luck. And then you need something to put on a portfolio, and you're looking for ideas. So first off, in terms of a portfolio, I recommend building up some GitHub repositories. That's usually a good portfolio for developers. Some public stuff on GitHub is a great place. You're thinking about making a Xamarin Forms Android app. So I don't know what kind of company you're trying to apply to, but if you can do something in their stack, that would be a good thing to do. So if you're going to be applying at places where you think you want to do mobile stuff in Xamarin, then yes, build some mobile stuff using Xamarin and put that on your GitHub so that people can see it. And make sure you mention that either in a cover letter or in a resume in some fashion, that you have that GitHub and that those things are there. Okay, for delivery drivers of the company I'm currently doing IT work for that would help to make their job more efficient. Okay, that's a cool thing also. Doing work that's related to that, and you're not sure if you could get it done in time, so you're trying to think of something you could do that would be a good showcase. That's a tough one. So if you just want to be able to show that you can do some programming and just have some things in place, you could just go do some katas and things like that that are also just a way of showing that you are attempting to practice, learn, and improve yourself. It's not full programs, but if you're worried about a time constraint, that's a way to make sure you can get something there to be able to show. Other than that one, it's always tough to come up with ideas for a program you can complete in an amount of time. But the thing I love about your suggestion is that it is related to a need that exists. And so I like to think of developers as makers. We're builders. We're solving problems. And so I love that you're focused on solving a problem for a specific audience. That is a great thing. Keep that mindset regardless of where the where any specific interview goes. And yes, Snowly Dev is right. You could just do the classic just to do application. That goes along the lines of like doing a kata or something like that. Just something to show that you're practicing and you're working on stuff. You like finding GitHub reasons? Yes, exactly. Yep. TBD Gamer is correct. So I used to do a lot of hiring at some of the companies that I used to work for. I was often like the hiring manager within the dev departments that I worked in, and I can tell you a GitHub repository on your resume goes a long way, not only because first off you had a GitHub repository and it's public and you're mentioning it to me, that's all positive, but in addition, I can go and look and be like, oh yeah, this person's doing some cool stuff. Yeah, they're actually like trying some things. I don't care if you spend all your time programming. I want to see that, you have interest in it and you want to do some stuff. You do not need to go and burn the midnight oil always programming. That's not sustainable. That's not always a positive, but you're interested and you're trying to improve. Boom, points in your favor. And it also, yes, as TBD Gamer talks about, we also might see something in your GitHub and ask you about it. If we saw, for example, that you did Xamarin Form stuff, I could talk to you about Xamarin. And I know that, and that gives me a better talking point than you mentioned Xamarin on your resume. If you mention Xamarin on your resume, it's like, okay, he's tried Xamarin. That doesn't mean much to me. Let's see, for different checkout, yeah. And you're welcome for the ideas. Make sure you have interest outside of IT and programming too. Yes, Surly Dev is correct. And those can also be nerdy pursuits, so don't feel like you suddenly have to become a jock if you're not. those asides could be like, you know, you like playing board games. You know, like you go out to a local board gaming club and you play, like maybe you get involved with that. Maybe you helped organize one. So those kinds of things are fantastic to just mention because that lets people know, hey, yeah, this person's like interested and does stuff. It doesn't have to be programming related, but it's something to talk about, right? Because lots of interviews they're like the interviewer is looking for things to discuss with you, and if they can, that is a positive. Okay, so click a couple of buttons here. All right, so the couple of things I do want to mention. First off, if you are new here, welcome. My name is Brendan. This channel here is DevChatter. We are very much a community of developers. We're very positive. Feel free to ask questions and things like that, as you can probably tell from the conversations that are going on in here. I want to make sure I mention a couple of things. First off, if you are new and you want to make sure you catch our future streams, I really recommend that you follow our Twitch stream here, as that is a great way to get notified when we go live. In addition, if you want to find out when the streams are happening and things like that, one of the other ways to do that is to be on our Discord. If you don't know what Discord is, chat application. There are a lot of like-minded developers. We have an awesome community of people. You've probably seen in the chat here. It's a really friendly and nice group. So you can find us over in our Discord. It's a great place to chat with us. In addition, all of our source code's out on GitHub, so you can find it at github.com/devchatter. And I also keep archives of our videos. The recent ones are here on the video section in Twitch, but you can also find them over on YouTube, and links are, of course, over there and down below. Let's see. Unfortunately, your laptop isn't up to it. People like Brendan and yourself make it look so easy. Well, I really appreciate the compliment, Surly Dev. This is our so we've done over 200 episodes of DevChatter. I've been doing this stream for over a year and a half now, so it's been quite good. I've really enjoyed a lot of our streaming stuff. I look a bit like your systems administrator instructor. Well, I will take that as a compliment. The artifacts. I hope, because you know, if you didn't mean that as a compliment, well, that's just not very nice, and you'd hurt my feelings. So, oh no on S&B. What about oh no on S&B? Did I miss something? You missed the enemy bot in the channel. Oh, there was an enemy bot in our channel that I apparently missed. Oh, well. I mean, I apparently missed that. That must have been whoever that was that S&B... I saw S&B banned someone at some point, but I didn't see what that was about. So, I guess it was a bot. Who knows? Either way. So, as a lot of the people here on the stream know... I've not been streaming as regularly as I used to. So we used to stream on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays, but lately my schedule has gotten jam-packed, and I've mainly been doing our Saturday stream because the time slot that I would normally be streaming, I've been stuck in meetings, and so haven't been able to get our streams going on those times. But I am going to try to get some streams scheduled for during the week. But either way, I want to let people know that that is in the works. So either way, I want to thank everyone for hanging out today. I am going to have to wrap the stream here, as I know that my small human is awake and up from his nap, and I want to go hang out with him and take care of him. Because, well, it's a weekend, and that means a little bit of family time. But obviously, you are all my family as well, and so I want to make sure I hang out with you. So that's why I make sure that I got to get at least one of these streams in each week. And I will catch you all on our next one. I don't know what... I want to do one sometime this week before our next Saturday. So thank you, everyone, for hanging out today. Make sure you have a great rest of your week. Obviously, if you join our Discord, you can chat with us about stuff. But if not, I will see you all on Twitter and back here on Twitch in the future as well. Happy coding. Make sure you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And find something cool to program. And hopefully we will, you know, all do some awesome stuff together next Saturday. So that's the plan. Hopefully we can get in another one before then, but if not, I will see you then. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.